Welcome back to AsArt with Nick, John, Sub-Zero, Liu Kang, Goro, and everybody else. Mortal Kombat. Get over here. I'm Batman.
Today we're going to talk about the Mortal Kombat 2021 that just dropped on HBO Max. We love HBO Max. We're big fans. We do reviews of a lot of shows, His Dark Materials to Watchmen, Raised by Wolves, you name it, we cover it here. And we also did Godzilla versus Kong. First thing John pointed out to me, which I thought was hilarious, was spoilers. Well, first of all, before we get into the spoilers, if you haven't watched the movie, go watch it because we might be spoiling stuff. But the best thing was I was like, John, did you like the way he said get over here? And John's like, it's amazing he was even able to say that because he speaks Japanese.
He doesn't speak a word of English in the entire movie, and yet he totally throws out, I'm like, get over here. Did you learn that in hell, sir? Is that like your catch?
Is that the common language in hell? English?
Yeah. Yeah, I was very confused by it. And it's funny. I mean, there was a lot of fan service. Definitely we're going to be getting more into the visual effects, but definitely a lot of fan service, funny stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to break down some VFX stuff, what we liked, what we didn't like. But first off, me and John both thought this was our favorite scene, was the opening scene.
Which is funny because Nick said, oh, that's what they put in the first trailer. And it got everybody amped up. Nick's like, I was all in after I saw that trailer. And I'm like, really? That they showed that whole scene? He's like, yeah, the opening. I was like, well, that was the best part of the entire movie. I'm like, oh no.
It worked on me. It made me want to watch it as soon as the movie came out. So it totally worked on me. I just liked how real it was. Even though Sub-Zero was freezing people and stuff, I still liked how real it was, just with like the way, like, I think there was a scene when he like pulled the guy's head. And the way it like hit on the ground, I was like, oh man, this looks so freaking sick.
and my wife, Kate, did watch this with me. And it was funny because she's a huge fan of the games too. And she goes, oh, I just love how the blood just spurt everywhere, just like in the games. And so that's obviously a really cool special effect, visual effect, is this spurting blood. Like, did you like the blood, Nick? Did you play the games a lot? I can't remember.
I played the old ones.
Yeah,
like
that's what I mean. Like
the arcade games ones. And,
yeah.
Was it just me, or did it kind of get like 300 vibes with the blood?
It got, I mean, it definitely, now that you mentioned that, I can definitely see that. I wasn't thinking that while I was watching it.
I just thought of it right now while we were talking about the blood thing. Trust me, I didn't jot this down, or I was just like, oh, we're going to remind me of this. But that's like the only other really bloody action movie we have with weapons that has a blood that squirts out like that, I guess. Because like, not horror movies, but like more action movies, right?
Yeah. And that was definitely the big thing about this movie. They had the Red Band trailer was really popular.
The rated R trailer, right?
It was the most popular one. I forgot what other movie was just released a trailer that totally surpassed that, but Mortal Kombat was, definitely up until that the most popular Red Band trailer they ever had. So it definitely had a lot of hype going in. So you had mentioned, so Nick started watching this a little bit last night, and I just watched it today right before we recorded. You had some issues with certain effects, right? Particle effects.
So let us know, guys, before we get into it. We want to know what you liked the most.
Yeah.
What was your favorite scene? Because we're going to go into it and we're just going to go down the rabbit hole with what we liked and didn't like and stuff. So I just want to make sure you guys get your voices heard. Put it down in the comments, what you guys liked, what you guys didn't like. We would love to create a conversation down there. But the thing that bugged me, John, like not like the most, but it kind of bugged me, was the fire effects. And it's tough though. Fire's so tough to do, and like to make it look good and real, but like especially when you're kind of molding fire, because fire's wild, right? Like that's one of the things I liked about Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is an animation, but the idea is like these firebenders can't really even control fire because it's like has a mind of its own. Like if it goes on a tree or whatever, it just it just ignites and grows and stuff. So it's not like water where you can freeze it, bring it back, and move it around and stuff. It's kind of like, I'm just gonna go burn everything, kind of thing. But it was cool. I don't know the character's name that uses the fireballs.
That was Liu Kang used it a good chunk of time, and it's interesting because what Nick said is exactly what I was thinking. You have fire and ice for Sub-Zero and Scorpion, and then Liu Kang obviously. You can kind of mold water and fire, or water and ice and things like
that. And earth. You can mold earth and like shapes and mud and stuff like that.
But fire is a little bit rough. I mean, fire has definitely gotten really, really good these days. But when you're trying, like Nick said, to mold it and make it look a very specific way or act a certain way, it starts to look weird because that's not something we deal with in real life. And I don't think it's that the effects were off at all. I think it's just we're not used to seeing that. Whereas the ice and stuff like that, it's a little bit more believable. But that brings us to our next point. Nick and I both really like the ice effects.
Big time. Like that. It was also cool. I don't remember seeing Mortal Kombat in the real world, but that whole sequence at the beginning where he was like chasing them with the car and stuff, it was cool to see like magic in the real world, like moving ice around and stuff like that.
Yeah. It was fun. You know what? I would say definitely for me, at least, the movie opened a lot more strongly than it closed out. But that being said, you have to have so many nods to fans, and I only played really the first 2 games, and just in that, all the characters, the majority of the characters were from the first 2 games, and you had so many nods to fatalities and things like that. So, and they had to do that. If they didn't do that and just tried to make it a standalone movie, all the game fans would have been upset. But that being said, my favorite parts were, like you said, the opening, where it wasn't in this, fighting world and things like that. And do you think they could have gone that route with the same effects and the same kind of attention to detail, but just not gone the game route?
I wasn't in it for the story. It's kind of like Godzilla versus Kong. Yeah, I was in it for the fighting sequences. Like I'm not an expert when it comes to the lore or anything like that. But what I remember from the 1995 and the other old like movies, the whole thing was like, you can't break the rules. Like they were like very firm about the rules. Like, these are the rules, you can't break them and stuff. It felt like they broke all the rules in this movie, which is fine. Like, I have nothing against it. Like, cool. I'm all about breaking the rules. But like, I just felt like there was no like arena fights. Like, is this a prequel to like the main story? And like when the fights really start happening between Earth and not Earth? I don't know what the other realm's called, but
so an interesting little thing about this, it's not really necessarily effects specific, but it does lead into where we're going from here. I think the guy who signed on for Sub-Zero, one of the main actors, that person signed on for like 4 sequels. So really? I think whether they make those or not is a different thing, but it's one of the main actors, might not be Sub-Zero, but they're making it to where they're planning, if this one does well, which it sounds like it's doing well so far, they're going to have a lot more of these. So if it was just a prequel or a lead in, but that's cool because this one was just kind of establishing the characters. They had fighting outside. And now if they go to the tournament thing and things like that, okay, this is a completely different environment for the next time around. I'm sure they're always going to mix it up like they did here. But if
Speaking
it was
of Sub-Zero's death, did you like the way he died?
You know what? I thought it was going to be even more to it. Like, so Nick said, he goes, something that was weird to me is seeing Scorpion and Sub-Zero's faces.
Well, for me, it was because I and then was their mask? Is that the original design of their mask? Because it reminds me of Shredder from Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I was completely getting the Shredder vibe for sure. And
especially when he grabs it and takes it off and there's like a scar in his cheek. I'm like, dude, this is Shredder vibes, dude. And then I think of Ninja Turtles 2. When he's like, they're babies, they're babies, babies, they're babies. But anyways, go on. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I totally got the Shredder vibe. At one point in time, I'm like, okay, we're gonna have Ninja Turtles pop out here in the
that would have been amazing. Oh my gosh, dude.
There's bloody Ninja Turtles, but
crossover.
In the original game, they do have Scorpion take off his mask and his face is just a skull, and that's when he breathes fire.
Oh, it's a skull.
And so that was when he breathes the fire at the end was a throwback to the first movie. But in the first game, it's just a ball of fire, and it just turns him into a skeleton. So instead of just having him sizzle a little bit, I thought he was going to totally go to skeleton, but they had him disappear at the end. And so clearly they're setting up to have these people return. He's like,
reincarnated or,
so we're going to get that back. But I was hoping he was going to be completely scorched down to a skeleton. We didn't get the cool fatality where Sub-Zero rips out the guy's head, and the spine's attached. I'm sure they're keeping them for down.
I mean, they're probably saving a lot of them, right? Because there's still a lot of characters that weren't in this.
A lot of characters. Yeah, for sure.
Like, what about, isn't there like a Johnny... Like the guy that was hinted at the end of the movie, right?
Yeah, Johnny Cage. And so that's funny. We'll keep this more for the movie review. But
gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm like going off here.
No, but Johnny Cage is JC. They originally wanted Jean-Claude Van Damme to play the part, and he didn't want to do it for the game. So they got a guy with the same JC, not VD Van Damme, but Johnny Cage for Jean-Claude. Yeah. So anyway, that'd be hilarious. What if they got Jean-Claude Van Damme to play Johnny Cage? Because they didn't show his face on the poster,
though, right?
That's true. And that's
everyone's so young in this movie. Why would you
that's
get
true.
someone so old all of a sudden?
Because he's Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Okay, so let's talk about the lightning. So yeah. Let's talk about the lightning effects. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
Were you a fan of the like Thor beaming like teleportation like lightning bolt thing?
Well, technically in movies, Raiden did it far before Thor did. So
I'm just
I guess
saying
it works
visual
in that
effects
regard.
wise, like it feels like it's like that thing that they transport with all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that totally works. I felt like I could have been happy with some thicker lightning. So one thing between Return of the Jedi with the Emperor's lightning and how he looked in the prequel shooting the lightning is it was much thinner lightning. It was more realistic, but I love the animated feel to the Emperor in Return of the Jedi. Whereas here, kind of like the prequels, it's a lot more smaller strand lightning. And I would have been happy with some more fantastical looking stuff, like shooting lightning. And it has that weird animated feel that they had in Return of the Jedi,
or like a dragon shape or something with it. Or I don't know. I don't know if that's
just something. Not really for Raiden, at least,
because we saw that with the fire, right? We saw like a dragon fire.
That's one of Liu Kang's fatalities in the game.
Cool.
And the second one is it's not a fire dragon, but it's a dragon. Then it bites the guy in half. So again, another game nod and things like that. But it was cool. There was a fire dragon. It was kind of cool stuff.
Fire dragon, fire drake.
I was kind of hoping to get a Raiden fight, but clearly they're saving that and the main baddie for future movies.
So is the main baddie a character from the game too?
The first game, in the first game, the main guy you saw, he can change shape and he shoots huge fireballs. And so I'm assuming again they're keeping that for later on. I think it'd be cool to see bringing back the early '90s, all the morphs and stuff going from character, because he can turn into any character and use their powers.
Yeah,
so it's that'd be funny to see.
Nice. What do you think of Goro?
Goro, so you go ahead. You start off because you had an interesting thing about the
1995. It was like a full-on what are those things called when it's like a puppet but the
animatronic?
Yes, it was an animatronic, right? And it's so cool. So on TikTok I did a side-by-side comparison between the animatronic and stuff. And then when I was looking for the original footage, I came across the VFX footage of it, like how they built the suit and everything.
Oh, really?
And it totally gave me like the Ninja Turtle vibes. And I'm such a fan of like actual effects and not VFX. Yes. And I'm like, dude, this is so cool. And it holds up pretty good. Like I'm not saying like it's, but it would have held up better than if they tried doing a 3D character back in 1995 to like interact and fight and stuff. For sure. Like, and actually having something to act with too would probably helped out a lot, even though he wasn't moving as much as the new one was moving and breaking stuff. But I got Hulk vibes, obviously, because he's so big. But not as good looking as Hulk.
I forgot. I was getting a certain vibe from it, but I forgot what
was. Was it Scorpion King?
No, it was not Scorpion King. You know what? I thought the effects looked perfecly fine. I mean, they look really good. There was a couple shots
at night too. Did you notice that?
They did, and the only shot that really didn't work for me, there was one shot where he steps in front of the side car window, door window, and the lighting, yes, but the lighting was kind of this weird bluish, and you got that a lot in early CG. You get this weird bluish tint to it, and I don't know if they were trying to make it where the moon or the night was shining on him, but the rest of the scene didn't look like that. But like a typical visual effects movie, certain shots didn't hold up quite as well, but overall the effects were great. But I think it's funny we keep getting different versions of Goro, because in the original game it was claymation to stop motion, which I love the look of that, and he still holds up really cool because it's this fantastical feel for this fantastic creature. Then, like you were saying in the first movie, which I've never seen all the way through, which is interesting to think about, even though I was a huge Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 fan, you get the animatronic, and now we're getting a full CG Goro, which is very interesting. I thought so. Goro, at least in the first game, is a big like reveal near the end, and he's a big fight. It was interesting that was the first like character.
And he died? Did he die?
Well, yeah, he definitely died in this. At the end, he disappeared again. So So
does it mean they go back to the realm and they just keep fighting eternally? I guess
I think they go to, like he said, death is just another realm, because they were saying there's a bunch of realms. So I'm assuming he's just going there and he's going to be back later on.
So it's like a playoff, right? You get in like the loser bracket, and you have like your chance to come back in to win, kind of thing.
That's right, consolation bracket. Yeah,
that's probably funny. Better than saying the losers bracket. That's probably not right. But okay, let's talk about the hat. It reminded me. So there's a hat. The guy that throws a hat. Don't know his name either. but I got Captain American vibes like
Kung
crazy. I've
Lao,
been
yes.
watching Winter Soldier and like, you know, Falcon and all that stuff. So I've just have the shield stuck in my head, bouncing out things and stuff. I'm like, dude, I mean, they must have just got the model off the shield and put a little bump and up's getting out. But I got the vibes, like the way the physics worked on it and the animation. I'm like, it looked good. Like, I'm not, everything looked good. The VFX artist did a great job. I don't know the budget for it and all this, but it seems like it worked for what they were doing. And then it's tough too, because it's a game, right? Like even some of the backgrounds, like there's some backgrounds, like when the metal arm guy was fighting the hammer guy.
Yeah, and Jax.
So like that, I don't know who the hammer guy that reminded me of a backdrop to Mortal Kombat game. Because they were,
it's the bridge level.
Yeah, they were like on a bridge and everything. I'm like, oh, dude, this is totally a background. But then it would cut to like the trailer fight where they're like in a mobile, like in a mobile home or whatever. The chick and the dude. And I was just like I'm getting like game vibes and I'm getting like Kill Bill, Jason Bourne vibes over here. It's just like, wait, what? Like, what's going on? Like, I was just like, what's you know? I thought it was weird that they would do that where you clearly had like arena set up and then they had this one random one in a trailer park or something like that, which I just thought was so weird.
Which is interesting because it's trying to show that you have the different realms, which is cool. But at the same time, it was kind of jarring having those juxtaposed next to each other. If that was a separate part of the movie, like the trailer part, maybe that wouldn't have felt as awkward and out of place.
Or maybe if it was explained better. Yeah, because like in Thor, you know how they explain the different realms? They like draw out a map. And they're like, okay, these are the 9 realms or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like if we got like maybe we did and I just wasn't paying attention or something. but like, you know, if we got more of like a establishing like this is the rules of our universe or something like that, then maybe. But maybe it's not meant for people like me who's just played it casually after winning a baseball game and going to arcade, eating pizza and fighting. Like, you know what I mean? Man,
I actually want that, right? I want pizza and an arcade. Those were good times, you guys. If you're younger and you've heard about the arcade days, let us know down below. And if you've played a lot of the other Mortal Kombats after part 2, and you have more, if you can feel us in if there's more lore that was in these movies. Like, honestly, the main guy, I didn't know who he was. I think he was introduced in Mortal Kombat 3, but I might be wrong. But I was like, okay, you have little batons, nightsticks. What the heck's going on here?
So he's not, because I didn't recognize him at all.
He's not in the first 2.
Maybe he's a new character for the show.
I think he was in the 3rd one, but you guys let us down. I know at least one of you watching this are going to know exactly where he's from. So let us know. But yeah, it's funny because if you're not a fan of the games or if you haven't played all the games, I don't know if you like this movie. A lot of it is seeing where the nods are going to come from and things like that.
So what bugged me, this has nothing to do with VFX, maybe it does, was I felt like the heroes, I want to call them the heroes, the guys that were on the side of the lightning dude, Raiden?
Raiden, yes. Yeah. Raiden, the god of thunder.
Basically, no one like won a fight on their own. I feel like they always got help from someone else, basically. Yeah. Like then like they would team up, and then like for the big boss battle, his dad had to come in, or his great grandfather, or whatever the timeline was for that. I don't know. It's just some kind of blood relation. He comes in to deal the final blow, and it's just like,
which by the way made me laugh. He's like, now your bloodline finally dies. I'm like, well, do you think he's the only kid from back mini gen? Like, there's got to be a bunch of these kids running around with crazy dragon tattoos. I'm like, you know, you've had a lot of time to think about this. I'm not sure if you thought this through all the way, buddy.
Maybe because his brain's a little frozen. Brain freeze. But any other big VFX things? We talked about the fire. Oh, we can talk about the arms. So we just watched Justice League, right? The extended cut. We had a total cyborg character, which has robotic arms and stuff. I loved how he had weak arms at first. Like these little like chicken arms or whatever you want to call them. And then I like how they got beefed up. He got nice and beefy, you know, with the arms. He's like ready to go. And what'd you think of the arms though? Did they feel like real arms? Was it comped in well? Did it fit in well?
I thought those were some of the more impressive effects because he clearly has arms and you have to paint those out. You have to put in CG arms. You have to make sure they fit in. Whether they were the best effects for the movie or not, just the fact that you have on all the shots he's in, you have to take those arms out is really difficult, and especially to have it match move and move along with that.
Yeah, I was really going to compare it to Winter Soldier because that's also Freshman. He has a mechanical arm, and I love the way it looks in the Captain America Winter Soldier show or whatever. But this is more difficult because there's 2 arms.
Yes.
and they do a lot where they do the Luke Skywalker thing. They'll give him like a long a long sleeve and a glove, so you don't even have to worry about the effect of, when he's doing that, which is smart. Totally smart. We only need to see it when it's like the hero shot and he's like using it for something. So,
and I honestly thought the earlier shots where you could see through, the arms and, like when you said they were kind of dinky, that was actually harder because there was more being seen in the background environment. So whether they had a motion control camera so they could repeat the same camera motion over and over so they could line those. But then actually it wasn't motion control because the arm is always going to be in different positions. So they literally had to track those arms. Even if the camera move was tracked, they had to paint that stuff out. Very, very hard effects wise. And so I thought those turned out really well. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, and then we had the girl with the vampire teeth mouth.
Yes, which I believe is Malika, I believe.
Gosh, man. That looked cool.
Yeah, that was, and again, that's coming straight out of the games. I think the second one, they introduced her.
Very anime feel.
Yeah, which is cool and hard. I'm glad they did dip strongly in the surreal, because to try and make everything look realistic like they did the beginning of the movie would have been very hard to do. I wanted to. Yeah. Oh, for sure. It looked really, really cool. Yeah.
I mean, just even like the way it was filmed and the atmosphere, everything about the opening scene was awesome. And
I wish that would have been the whole movie, but at the same time, I don't think the video game people would have been satisfied if that was the case.
But it was also good though, because to let us know it was in the past. You know what I mean? Because like sometimes also changing up the style and the way it's filmed to show like past and present, like moving faster, quicker cuts or whatever. To help like show the differences of time jumps and stuff like that too.
So let me ask you this. This is effects related, but not necessarily to Mortal Kombat, but maybe in an alternate universe Mortal Kombat. You're getting, so Castlevania, one of my favorite old school game series, even though I've only played, 1 or 2.
The anime one or the animation one on Netflix.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. They have the anime version on Netflix. So you don't always have to go live action. And then you have, so the newer Mortal Kombats look very, very good. Would you be satisfied if you had like a newer Mortal Kombat game style movie? Would you be happy with that, or do you think live action was better for this?
I would prefer that.
I think I would prefer that over live action.
Like I'm talking about games cinematic, like Love, Death and Robots, like
or a Clone Wars, right?
High quality, but I think like high quality rendering, like realistic, you know what I mean? Like that would be sick in like a stylized world and everything. Like, dude, that would be. But I guess we get that with the games now, right? With all the action.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, so The Last of Us is a great example. Last of Us, extremely popular games. Didn't like the second one, but loved the first one. They're bringing that to HBO Max as a live action series. I feel like, especially the fidelity of the face motion capture and the body and everything that they had for the games, if they did like a show series in those cutscene setups, I think I'd prefer that to live action. I don't know if I'm in the minority there, and who knows how long it would take them to achieve that, because Naughty Dog's at the very top of their game, and I'm sure those cinematics took them a long, long time.
We're getting closer and closer to not having actors on the screen anyways. I mean, look at Avengers. Half the cast are CG characters when they're fighting anyways. Like,
Yeah. And from a difficulty standpoint, I mean, the CG stuff that you're seeing in games and movies is absolutely ridiculously difficult. And we've used this analogy a lot. If I had to compare difficulty-wise, from an integration standpoint, having Pixar, who does beautiful, amazing stuff, versus Lord of the Rings with Gollum and things like that, integrating that into live action, to me, it feels, at least in my experience, a lot harder to integrate CG into live action than having everything 3D. Doesn't mean
it just makes it easier because you're already in that world. You're not trying to.
There's no integration.
It's well, I mean, obviously you want your models to all be on the same
par.
And you want the environment to, but like that's a lot easier to do once you have a stylized board and you go for it, kind of thing.
So that's my question: is do you think them doing this live action? Do you think it's not as hard as if they did this all game cinematic or things like that, or do you think it's
probably cheaper
because to do it which way?
With the actors, I mean, I think it's probably cheaper. I mean.
I don't
I
know,
don't know
because
though, because like
having live action actors guilds and things like that, it gets very expensive in that. And then sets, to build sets and have people on sets and all the people on there is
maybe
very
they're just
expensive.
worried it's not going to do well.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe people. So I'm curious, those of you in the audience, do you prefer live action stuff, or would you actually like CG if they gave that? And there's no reason you can't have both, but I'm curious to see what people would like more, because we're nerds and we like animated stuff, but the general population might not like. We are, but the general population might not like animated stuff as much. I mean, some people like are animated. I don't want to watch that. I want to watch something that's real or live action.
Yeah,
So,
but I mean, they called the Lion King remake the live action where it was all CCG. So I don't know what.
Which is hilarious.
And like Avengers is practically a CG movie at this point. Yeah, you have actors in there for a couple talk scenes, but all the action stuff, all the
digital
planets,
doubles,
everything, even New York City's not even real. Like that's all done on green screen sets and everything now because they control the environment. Like, I mean, is it even fair to say live action? I'm gonna start saying it's a CG movie with live action people in it or something. That's what it is now.
Yeah, I mean, really. So if you guys look at some of those shots from Avengers, the very first one, that's a long time ago, so maybe it's not fair. But the famous shot where they're all assembled for the first time, and you have the sweeping camera move around them. That was all green screen. They all the city behind them, all that was filled in afterwards.
They rebuilt New York City for those shots. Like,
and so I do have to wonder. So a big thing is when you had old games that had painted backgrounds and stuff like that. Going to 3D saved a whole lot of money. And so 3D was cheaper. But I'm still curious, if you're comparing 3D animated films to live action, what's more expensive? And I don't know,
because the budgets are still expensive for Pixar movies.
Super expensive, yes. I mean, especially the rendering and everything like that. Yeah.
And which is also included in live action ones probably now too. But the people that do the CG, they're probably more expensive too. Like Pixar's salary is probably a lot higher for their artists, and like live action films are more known for outsourcing multiple different shots to get the movie done. Where like Pixar's like in house, right? So they're paying their artists well, they're paying them to stay there, work on movies constantly and stuff. Where like any movie, maybe except for Weta or like Lord of the Rings, which is all done in house for the most part. They'll probably send out some stuff, but like everything, there's so many studios that work on movies now because there's not enough. I mean, you need a huge team and crew to work on an average superhero movie now, or VFX movie. Even like Godzilla versus Kong, you needed tons of people for that. There's shots so much going on in the lighting and all that. They're outsourcing. They're outsourcing because their teams aren't big enough. Like Industrial Light and Magic, they're working on every big action movie coming out. There's no way they're doing every single shot. They're doing like the main hero shots, but so much of it is probably being outsourced.
And you're right, though. That's very interesting. I didn't think about that. Animated films are usually done mostly by one house. People who did Book of Life, which I thought was wonderful, done by one visual effects house. Even Rango, Industrial Light and Magic doesn't typically do animated films. They did all of Rango because it's all their technology, all their rendering. It doesn't make sense to farm that out. Pixar obviously does their own things. Some studios might farm animated work out, but I feel like that defeats the purpose because at that point,
which ones though? Like which ones would farm stuff out? Like Blue Sky was huge, DreamWorks was huge. They did it on their own. Sony, I think, that has their own animation department.
I can't for 3D animated feature films. I can't think of who would farm it out. It doesn't make sense. Then again, you think of Weta and them doing all the Lord of the Rings. They did farm out some major shots to other companies.
Well, they probably had too many shots. They were probably overloaded. They had to.
Yeah. And at the time, I mean, they were already very, very big, but there were certain things that they weren't really capable of doing quite yet. And the only example I have, the only reason I know this, and in any of the behind the scenes, they ever mentioned this, but the guy came into our class, and I think it was called Evil Eye was the company they worked for. They got somewhat famous based off Lord of the Rings, Evil Eye. But this one guy, he ended up writing all of the math for Day After Tomorrow, where they had these crazy ocean stuff. He wrote all the math for
all
this,
the particle simulations.
Yes, so he wrote. But the big thing he did for Return of the King was the Eye of Sauron and the crumbling tower. That was all him.
Boom.
And then he did the compositing as well. In fact, they were going to use RenderMan, and RenderMan was not complex and powerful enough to render that out. It crashed RenderMan. So he's like, well, I have to write my own render engine within about 3 or 4 weeks. And he wrote his own render. And it's cool because he showed us all the breakdowns. The crumbling of the tower, he did in reverse. He wrote mathematical equations to mimic how rock candy forms. And he used that to split up the chunks. And he went through all of his tests. It was amazing. But so long story short, live action, even when you think it's done by one studio, like Nick was saying, they might farm it out. Whereas Pixar and like Rango for ILM, it seems like it's all done in house. So that's a very interesting point. Yeah. Let us know what you thought of this new 2021 Mortal Kombat movie. If you liked the old one more, let us know as well. That's considered one of the best video game movies of all time. Again, still cheesy, but it was, compared to Street Fighter and like other things like that, it was a huge success. Let us know what you preferred. Are you excited at the possibility of getting 4 more sequels to this? Or do you think like having one decent movie was good enough? We're going to probably do a movie review breakdown in another episode with other people as well. In the meantime, we wanted to get out this visual effects breakdown and review because we had a lot of fun. Even if you're not a fan of video game movies, the effects were definitely really good. So it was fun to be able to talk about. Let us know what you thought down below in the comments. Check out AsArt for the audio and video links. Subscribe if you like our content. We have a plethora of different content. So get over here and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next AsArt.